So good morning once again, dear students of class 10. Once again we meet after a short summer break, and it's time to take up the short story which we were doing in our previous two videos. We are going to continue with the blue bead. So please take out your textbooks and please get ready for today's class. So students, we continue from the paragraph where we had stopped. That is, we had stopped at black bones. On your screen now you can see the text of the story. So we continue from the very next paragraph. So as I read, I'll be explaining, so all of you please pay attention and please follow the text. I hope all of you have opened your textbooks, and in case if you find it difficult to follow from the textbook, you can always follow from what you can see on the screen. The Gujars were Junglis, as Sibya was too. Here Junglis refers to people who live in forests. So there are settlements, human settlements inside Indian forests, and traditionally for centuries these tribal people, they have been living in these forest settlements. They make kacha houses and huts rather, and they depend largely on forest products. They collect wood and they cut grass and sell it in the market, and they rear cattle and perhaps do a little bit of cultivation also. So the Gujars were Junglis, as Sibya was too. So both Sibya and the Gujars, they were Junglis, meaning to say that they were accustomed to living in the jungles. So their villages were, or their settlements were inside the jungles. Now the Gujars, as I told you in our previous video, they were nomadic people. They moved from one place to another wherever they could find proper grazing ground for their cattle, because cattle rearing was their main occupation. They would go to such places and then camp there for some time, build temporary huts for some time, or make encampments, and then move on once the grass in that area was finished and there was nothing for the cattle to graze on. But Sibya and his clan, the people of his village, they were permanent residents of these villages inside the forests or adjoining the forests. So born and bred in the forest. So born and brought up in the forest itself. For countless centuries, like I told you, for centuries, these people, they are ethnic people, they are the backward class people, poor people, and they have been living in the jungles. Their forebears had lived like this, getting their living from animals, from grass and trees, as they scratched their food together and stored their substance in large herds and silver jewelry. They were man in the wandering pastoral age, not stone age hunters and not yet cultivators. So you could say that their way of life, this comparison is nothing but a comparison with early man. That means when we talk in terms of the stone age, or when we talk in terms of man living in the pastoral age, pastoral means life spent in the pastures. Pastures are you can say meadows, or cultivable ground. So village people, rural people, they generally have this kind of life, that is pastoral life. Pastoral means life in the pastures. That means village life, where cultivation, farming, cattle rearing, these are the main or the chief occupations. So ever since the time of early man, you could almost say that these people have lived on in such habitat, and their lifestyle therefore can never be the same as the lifestyle of the people who live in towns and cities. Now there was the river twinkling between the trees, sunlit beyond dark trunks. They could hear it rushing along, so they were coming towards the river. Who were coming towards the river? Of course, Sibya and her mother and other women of her village. So she was accompanying them, and you know already where they are going. They are going to cross this river and go to the other side, which is a highland area, and on the slopes of the hills that lie on the other side of the river bank, they are going to cut the paper grass, and this paper grass will then be brought into the village in bundles which they would carry on their heads, and eventually the middleman would come and collect the paper grass bundles from them at a very nominal rate. So this was their way of earning a bit of money. So as they were nearing the river, they could see the river water twinkling in the sun, because there are currents, river currents inside the water, and the ripples of water are glistening in the sun. And they could also hear the sound of the river as it rushed along. The women came out on the shore and made for the stepping stones. They had plenty to laugh and bicker about as they approached the river in a noisy crowd. Now, women, when they are together, they love to chat, and they will laugh, giggle, talk, and they have so many things under the sun that they have to discuss with each other, share with each other. And so it is a continuous process of talking and laughing and giggling. All these women of different age groups laughing along, talking along. And when so many people, so many human beings are making noise and moving across the river, the crocodile will not dare attack. The crocodile knows that there are too many humans there, and so the crocodile is conscious of the fact that it could be risky. So animals have their instincts. They know when to attack. When they find their prey alone, only then do they attack, which is the case with the Gujar woman, which will happen very soon in the story we shall see. But not when a group of people are moving across the river water. Well, that could be one of the reasons, and there could be yet another reason. Maybe the crocodile was not around at that moment, particularly when these women were using the stepping stones to cross the river. What are these stepping stones? You must have all observed when you have gone for picnic, whether you go to the Jaldhaka riverside or whether you go to any other riverside, there are big and small stones naturally scattered all over the river, and these stones are much bigger, and so they stick out of the water. And sometimes you wade through the water to climb onto those stones and then click pictures. So these stones can actually be used as stepping stones. That is, you step from one stone to another and yet another, and thereby, without wetting your feet, you can actually cross a shallow river, or where the river is shallow. So these women were crossing the river. They were a noisy crowd. They girded up their skirts. Now, when they have to cross the river, obviously they have to lift up their skirts and wind them round their thighs so that their ankles are free. The lower part of their legs are free. Below the knee, there is no cloth or there is no covering, so that if they by chance step inside the water, their dress will not become wet. So this is a natural instinct that when you are wearing something like a skirt or a sari which reaches up to your feet, then you have to hike it up at least up to the level of the knee so that you can wade through the water. So this is what these women did. They girded up their skirts so as to jump from stone to stone. Like I told you, they were using these stones to step from one stone to another and thereby crossing the river. And they clanked their sickles and forks together. What are the sickles? Sickles are curved knives with teeth-like projections along the curve and with a long handle. These are generally used by farmers for harvesting crops. Now these women are carrying these tools because they have to cut the grass. So sickles and forks. And what are forks? Well, a fork, of course, as you know, I had already posted the picture of a fork long ago when we did the second part of the story. That is the second video. The day I had given you the link for the second video, somebody had asked, so I had posted the picture of the fork. So you can just look it up. If you are not sure about what they look like, you can just type sickle and you can search in Google Images. And in case if you want to know what a fork is, you can again type fork and search in Google Images. So you'll get to know what they are. A fork is a 3-pronged or a 4-pronged gardening tool used generally for tossing and turning hay over. And a sickle, as I told you, is a curved knife which has teeth-like projections on the inner side, the sharper side, with which you actually harvest crops. So these women were carrying these tools with them, together over their shoulders to have ease of movement. So what did they do? They not only lifted up their skirts and not only wrapped them round their thighs to free their legs, they also kept these two tools which they were carrying on their shoulders so as to maintain their balance with both hands, so that they don't have to carry these tools in their hands as they jump from stone to stone, because it could be dangerous. If they slip and fall, they could possibly fall on these sharp tools and get hurt, and that's the reason they kept these items on their shoulders. So this is how they crossed the river. They shouted their quarrels above the gush of the river. Shouted their quarrels. Well, some of them were debating, arguing with each other maybe, and it is quite common among the substandard, backward class, lower class people, the village class people to talk in very loud voices and very often have their own quarrels. But those quarrels are not really serious ones. It's part of their, or rather, the way of the way in which they generally interact with each other. So this is how they were crossing the river. So this paragraph describes that. Now, noise frightens crocodiles. Now, as I was telling you, that so many people, first of all, and secondly, so much of noise, because they are chatting, laughing loudly, shouting out to each other, some of them quarreling, and then the sound of the clanking sickle and the fork. So there's a lot of noise going on. Overall, the collective impact of the noise is too much for the crocodile, which is an animal and which fears human beings. You see, animals, all animals in general have a tendency to run away when they see human beings, and the crocodile was no exception, because in this case, there were too many people and the crocodile knew that this was not the right time to attack anyone. So the noise frightened crocodiles. The big mugger did not move, and all the women crossed in safety to the other bank. Here they had to climb a still hillside to get at the grass. Now, as I told you, the other side of the river bank is a bit hilly, and there are small hillocks, and the slopes are very steep, and they have to climb. And there on the slopes of the hill, they have this paper grass which they plan to cut. They probably do this every day throughout the week, and the grass keeps growing back, and they have enough grass to cut every day, almost every other day. So, but all fell to with a will and sliced away at it wherever there was foothold to be had. So what did these women do? All fell to, meaning to say all of them together started climbing the hill, and wherever they could get a sure footing, they were trying to place their feet, and then they poised themselves to cut the grass. So they started cutting the grass. Now imagine so many women on the slope of the hill, and they are cutting the grass. They have to be conscious about maintaining their balance while they cut the grass with their feet. They have to maintain their balance because their hands are engaged in cutting the grass. Down below them ran the broad river, pouring powerfully out from its deep, narrow pools. So, once again, the description of the river. Among the cold cliffs and shadows, spreading into warm shallows, lit by kingfishers. So you see down below, when you are high up on a hillock or the slope of a hill, down below in the valley you can see the river, and you can see the kingfisher. What is the kingfisher? Kingfisher is a bird which catches fish. It has a beautiful color. It is orangish and reddish in color, and it hovers over the water. It flies over the water surface and swoops down as soon as it sees any fish, small fish in fact, and catches it. It has long pointed beaks, and it can catch fish very cleverly. So the kingfishers. Great turtles lived there. Now this river was also home to big turtles, not only the crocodile, not only the fish, Not only these birds, the kingfisher and the others, but also the turtles. And Mashir, weighing more than 100 pounds. Now what is the Mashir? Well, you can just look it up in your workbook. Meaning will be explained there. In case if you don't find it, please look it up in Google. And if still you are not sure, then of course I will be sending you the meaning in the WhatsApp group. So this river was the home for the great turtles and also the Mashir. And crocodiles too. Sometimes you could see them lying out on those slabs of clay over there, but there were none to be seen at the moment. Not only the main crocodile of the story, but also there were many other crocodiles. So the story started off with the description of a particular crocodile which was huge in size. But now we have reference to other crocodiles also. Where Sibia was working, wind coming across hundreds of miles of trees cooled her sweating body, and she could look down over the river as if she were a bird. Now, from the top of the hill or the slopes of the hill, when you look down, you get a bird's eye view of the scenery down below, and that's what Sibia was able to experience, as if she were a bird. When she looked down below in the valley, the river was visible and over the tops of trees. So that is the impact created here. That is what is being described here. And because she is working, she is sweating because they are working in the broad daylight with the sun overhead, and manual labor of course leads to perspiration. She is sweating, but then the wind which is blowing is cooling her body as she is working. Remember, Sibia is a small girl. She's only 12 years old and she's working like the other women. So she is being treated as a grown-up, though she's still a child. So in her kind of society, there is no childhood, particularly for girls, and maybe not even for the boys. And everyone has to work right from the time they are able to do their things by themselves. I have been mentioning this earlier also in my previous two videos. So keep this always in mind, that she is a child woman. She is, though a child in years, she is considered to be a woman by the other females of her society. So Sibia is working and she is cutting the grass, the paper grass, and looking down at the river sometimes. Although she did not dare stop for a moment under her mother's eye, her imagination took her in swooping flight over the bright water and golden air to the banks where she had played as a child. Now the child inside her is desperate to go and play. She thinks about the various playful moments that she has had when she has not been working, and she does not dare to stop her work because she knows that her mother, who is cutting the grass alongside just next to her, is keeping a watchful eye on her. She has to do the same amount of work, she has to cut the same amount of grass which her mother is cutting. So she cannot stop, but her mind is wandering. So there is nothing that can restrain the human mind, because your imagination and your recapitulation of the past can always work wonders inside your mind. And that is what is happening with Sibia. She's thinking about her playful moments, but she knows that she has to work. So the child inside her is upset, is troubled, but she has to work. So then you have, in those cavelets above the high watermark of the highest flood, she had stored some little bowls molded of clay while they hardened. If there were anything that could be used for coloring, they would look fine, painted with marigolds and elephants. So what had Sibia done? Well, when she was free, in her free time, she had made some clay bowls. Little bowls playfully out of clay which she must have collected from near the bank of the river. She had molded them or given them shape to look like small bowls, and she had kept them. Now, after you make something out of clay, it has to be left in the sun first of all for hardening. It gets hardened, and then the next step is to burn it in fire till it becomes very, very hard and becomes reddish. And then we call it terracotta. Terracotta means something which is made of earth or clay and has been burnt in fire. And then you can color them and they will look beautiful. So in this case there was no question of burning them in fire, but at least she had made them and she had left them out in the sun to dry. Now animals won't touch them because those are of no use to animals. She had kept these bowls in the cavelets. What are cavelets? Small caves. Caves are bigger, cavelets are smaller. So as if they are the young ones of bigger caves. So cavelets. So there were some cave-like gaps on the banks of the river alongside the mountain, and she had kept some clay pots which she had made, clay bowls rather, in them so that they would dry, and then later on she would collect them, take them home, and then make beautiful colorful designs on them, maybe draw marigolds, maybe draw elephants. So this was her plan, if she had the color to paint them. Of course, we know that they are so poor that they cannot even afford to buy bead necklaces for themselves. So they have to depend on the forest product, the red seeds which they get from the forest, and they make necklaces out of them. And then the needle of the family was also broken, so they could not even afford to buy a new needle. So just imagine how poor they were, and at the same time how impossible it was for Sibia to have some color so that she could color those bowls. Not possible, but at least the bowls could be made because the raw material was clay, and clay was available in abundance along the banks of the river. So she had made this and she was thinking about those bowls. Child, mother's scolding. It is nothing but mother's scolding. The sharp word, the glare of her mother's angry, sweating face pulled Sibia back to work, and they toiled on. Maybe Sibia had stopped working. She was cutting the grass, but she must have stopped her hands, and she must have been gazing at the river, thinking about those clay bowls or thinking about her playful moments. And mother suddenly noticed it, and so she shouted, "Child." And she again started working. Toiled on means started working hard. But at last it was time to go back to see to their animals and the evening meal. The loaded women set out across the river again. Now, how do they carry their loads? On their heads. You must have all seen women when they go to collect grass or firewood in the forest. Here in North Bengal, particularly in this particular area where we have a lot of forests, we often get to see such people, poor people carrying loads of grass on their head, particularly women. They generally do this task, and that is how these women were once again loaded with grass, crossing the river, stepping on the stepping stones. Sibia hung back. She would just dawdle a bit and run and see if the little clay cups were still there in the cave, waiting to be painted and used. What was Sibia's plan? Let the others, let the elders, including her mother, go ahead. Now see, they all have loads of grass on their heads. So they will not delay, they will not stop anywhere, and they will continue walking till they reach their village across the river. So Sibia intentionally fell back, stayed back, or rather started walking, but then walking very slowly so that the others would go ahead, and she could then quietly slip away from behind and go and check those little clay pots or cups which she had made and kept inside the cavelet, and she wanted to collect them, and then she would come back home. So this was her plan. So she could then paint them rather, and use them. Although the women were now tired and loaded, they still talked. Those in front yelled to those behind. They crossed the river safely and disappeared up the track into the trees on the other side. Even their voices died away. Silence fell. So this is how the women were finally gone. The village where they lived was inside the forest. So after crossing the river, they went across and into the trees, and their voices could be heard for some time till they were not heard anymore. So now it was complete silence except the sound of the moving water in the river. Sibia came down alone to the stepping stones. Now Sibia had reached the river. The others have crossed and gone already. She reached the stepping stones. The light of evening was striking up the gorge, pink into the ultraviolet shadows. Now, light of evening, setting sun. The sun is setting now. It's growing darker. Maybe the dusk is gradually falling. The last rays of the sun, orangish or reddish hue of the sun rays across the valley. Gorge means valley through which the river flows. So pink and ultraviolet, these are the different colors of the setting sun rays. Now that the sun was off it, the water poured almost invisible among the stones, with no reflection to show where it began. So when the sun is overhead, you can see the water clearly and whatever is inside the water. But when the sun is setting in the western horizon, and if you have the hills alongside, and if the river is actually flowing through a gorge or a valley, then what happens? The shadow of the hill and the darkness quickly approaches and covers the surface of the water, as a result of which you cannot really see the water clearly anymore. It looks dark. It looks dark. And then it becomes more dangerous, because if the crocodile is inside the water right next to you when you are inside the river or on one of those stepping stones, you won't even know. And this crocodile could attack you. So this was the kind of situation that Sibia was in. But Sibia was not afraid, partly because she was accustomed to this type of life, and she was actually a jungli, as mentioned earlier. Her lifestyle is something which associates with the forest and the natural habitat, which is also the natural habitat of the crocodile. So she's not a scared girl. She is not a girl from a city or a town that she'll be screaming in fear or anything. She's a brave girl. And let's see what she does. Sibia stepped onto the first stone. She was heavily weighted, her muscles stretched and aching. Now she's a small girl, so her muscles, tiny little girl, 12 years old, and she's carrying a load of grass on her head, and then she's also carrying a hay fork and maybe a sickle, plus she must have collected those clay cups. So she's totally loaded. For a 12-year-old, that's a huge load. And then she has to balance it, and then she has to step on the stones and cross the river. Tough task for this little girl. Her muscles were already showing signs of pain. So she was heavily weighted. The hay fork squeaked in the packed dry grass and dug into her collarbone, so close under the skin, in spite of the sari bunched up to make a pad. So, as we already know that Sibia wears a two-piece garment. The upper garment, her blouse, and the lower garment, her sari. Now this sari is also made of the same piece of rag which the blouse is made of. and she had folded up a portion of that sari onto her shoulder, and there was this hay fork attached to her shoulder which was digging into her collarbone. So it was a very tricky situation for her, and she had to manage all these things. So just imagine that she has to carry a load of grass plus a big hay fork. Now for a grown up, carrying a hay fork is a lot easier than for a 12-year-old, and then it was so awkward, it was digging into her collarbone. When she was halfway over, she put her load down on a big boulder to rest and leaned, breathing on the fork. Now, small child that she is, that heavy load and the strain of crossing the river makes her tired, so halfway through she stops and she puts her load down on the boulder and she is panting for breath. She has become breathless. So, at this moment, something happens. Let's see what happens. At the same moment, a Gujar woman came down with two garhas. We know garhas are those utensils, metal utensils, which the Gujars only could afford. And this Gujar woman came to the river in order to fill the garhas with water, both for cooking and for drinking maybe. So for that reason, to the water on the other side. Now remember, Sibia is crossing the river from the opposite side, and she has just crossed maybe just one or two stones, stepping stones, and then she has stopped to take rest. And she can see that there are some more stepping stones ahead of her, and then beyond that, the other bank of the river where this Gujar woman has come to fill the garhas. She can see her because the dying rays of the setting sun, even now there is enough brightness, so she can see this Gujar woman. Now let's see what happens. In order to get the good clear water which would quickly fill both garhas to the top without sand, she walked onto the stepping stones. Now if you fill your utensil from the edge of the river or the side of the river or the bank of the river, what happens there is the river bank has sand in it, plus because of the flow of the river current, all the all unnecessary things which flow in the water generally get deposited towards the bank. So the water is not very clear at the edge of the river, so it is better to go somewhere in the center and fill the garhas. And that is the reason why this woman steps on the stepping stones, planning to come somewhere towards the center of the river so that she could fill her garhas without having sand going inside them, only the fresh water from the center of the river. So this was her plan, and so she started walking on the stepping stones. So she is approaching Sibia in a way from the other side, but her intention is to come somewhere in between and then fill the garhas. She was within a yard of the crocodile when he lunged at her. So just a yard. How much is a yard? Maybe about 1.5 feet, or maybe a couple of feet at the most. So just as she sat down on the stone and lowered her arms and had just started filling the garhas, the crocodile, which was lurking in the water, now we already know that the water is dark. Now nothing is visible inside the water as the sun is setting. She could not see the crocodile. And the crocodile, the skin of the crocodile is also greyish or blackish grey. That's the reason why it was all the more not visible. It was camouflaged with the dark water of the river, and it lunged at this Gujar woman. So we will see what happens after this in our next video. So much for today, and I hope I have been able to explain sufficiently enough. If you have any doubts, you can once again play the video and watch.